Butch Reed's wrestling saga is a cautionary epic of raw power, squandered potential, and self-inflicted wounds. A tale of a man who could shake arenas with his thunderous slams, but couldn't escape the chokehold of his own ego. Picture this: a former NFL lineman, built like a tank at 6 feet 2 inches and 280 pounds, with a scowl that could curdle milk and moves that left opponents seeing stars. He had the physique of a god, the timing of a technician, and the charisma to command crowds from Mid-South barns to Madison Square Garden. Yet, for all his gifts, Reed's career became a masterclass in how arrogance, backstage beefs, and unprofessional antics can bulldoze a path to obscurity. From rubbing promoters like Bill Watts the wrong way to snubbing screaming fans and botching gimmicks that screamed desperation, Reed didn't just trip over his own feet. He stomped them flat. His story isn't one of bad breaks. It's a blueprint for burning bridges, culminating in a heartbreaking fade to black. Trained by the legendary Ron Simmons, Reed burst onto the scene in 1978 as Bruce Reed, a Kansas City kid with football dreams dashed by the Chiefs' cut list. But wrestling? That was his coliseum, and for a while, he ruled it like a colossus, until the cracks in his armor turned into craters that Reed's early days were pure hustle. Forged in the unforgiving NWA territories where survival meant outworking everyone. Debuting in Central States Wrestling, he wasted no time stacking hardware. In 1980, teaming with Jerry Roberts, he dethroned Mike George and Bob Sweet for the NWA Central States Tag Team Championship, a gritty win that announced him as more than a rookie. They held the gold until the Kelly twins snatched it in January 1981. But Reed was already turning heads with his explosive power, stiff clotheslines that echoed like thunder, spine busters that flattened the mat, and a bulldog that could rearrange facial features. The next year, he linked up with Sweet Brown Sugar, the future SD Jones, to conquer the Florida NWA North American Tag Team titles, toppling Dory Funk Jr. and David Von Erich in a barn burner that showcased Reed's amateur wrestling roots from the University of Central Missouri. These weren't flukes. They were statements. By the early 1980s, Reed was a territorial terror bouncing between St. Louis, Florida Championship Wrestling, and Georgia Championship Wrestling, where his powerhouse style earned nods from grizzled vets. He wasn't flashy like Ric Flair or charismatic like Dusty Rhodes. He was a sledgehammer, reliable and ruthless. The pinnacle of Reed's early promise came on April 7, 1982. In Miami's Orange Bowl Arena, when he squared off against Flair for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. What unfolded was a 45-minute war of attrition, a symphony of suplexes, near falls, and Flair's signature desperation. Reed dominated stretches with his raw strength, hoisting the Nature Boy like a ragdoll, but Flair's cunning prevailed in a figure-4 submission. The match etched Reed into immortality. Dave Meltzer awarded it 5 stars in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. The first ever for a non-Japanese bout, a badge of honor that screamed main event monster. Fans left buzzing. Promoters took note. Reed wasn't just a mid-card bruiser. He was a threat to the throne. That momentum propelled him to Bill Watts' Mid-South Wrestling in 1983, where Hacksaw Butch Reed was born, a chainsaw-wielding powerhouse with a buzz cut and a mean streak. Paired initially with the Junkyard Dog, JYD, Reed's tag run was electric, their chemistry a blend of JYD's soulful barks and Reed's silent menace. But nicknames breed beef, and Reed's Hacksaw moniker clashed with Jim Duggan's, igniting a feud that defined Mid-South's gritty golden age. The two Hacksaws slugged it out in brutal brawls, Duggan's 2x4 swinging wild while Reed countered with loaded gloves and steel chair shots. Duggan's Rat Pack allies, Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne, piled on, turning matches into melees. But the real drama unfolded when Duggan flipped babyface, leaving Reed feeling like yesterday's news. In a scorching TV promo, Reed snapped, "Butch Reed is going to start looking out for Butch Reed." He ambushed JYD in the ring, with DiBiase joining the stompdown, birthing one of Mid-South's hottest heels. Reed's arrogance peaked on July 16, 1983, when he captured the Mid-South North American Heavyweight Championship from Murdoch. Defending against JYD in dog-collar chain matches that drew blood and thunderous pops, Reed was untouchable until his ego wrote a bad check. in a fan-voted title shot gimmick. He offered choices: JYD, Duggan, Crusher Khrushchev, or Magnum TA. The ballots poured in for JYD, but Reed sneered at the results, crowning Magnum the worthy challenger. The backlash was instant. Fans jeered him as a fraud. Magnum capitalized, dethroning Reed in a slobberknocker that flipped the script. Chaos ensued. Nikolai Volkov swiped the belt from Magnum 12 days later, only for officials to vacate it and reinstall Reed, until Dusty Rhodes, as guest ref, cost him the rematch in a haze of controversy. Reed pivoted to tags, snagging the Mid-South Tag Team Championship with Jim Knox. Hard on the same night, he dropped the singles gold. They fended off challengers like Magnum and Duggan, but hubris struck again, facing Magnum and the masked Mr. Wrestling 2. Reed demanded the mask be wagered in a steel cage on Christmas night 1983. The holiday crowd packed the arena, but Reed and Knott fell, unmasking the legend, Bill Mercer, and sparking a bitter split. Their short feud was vicious. Reed's spinebusters versus Knott's technical wizardry, but fleeting. Reed's next war was with Terry Taylor, a young gun Watts was grooming. Spring 1984 saw Reed maul Taylor with coal miner's glove shots, bloodying him in TV tapings that built Taylor's resilience. When Buddy Landel, Nature Boy 2.0, allied with Reed, their tag rampages terrorized Mid-South. But the spotlight swung back to JYD. Reed and Landel ambushed the Dog mid-match, unmasking his stagger-lead disguise and painting him yellow, a racist-tinged humiliation that ignited infernos. Dog collar bouts followed, chains rattling as JYD's vengeance clashed with Reed's brutality, drawing sellouts and screams that JYD's shock jump to WWF in late 1984 left Watts scrambling, subbing in Master G, George Wells, for a tepid feud that fizzled. Reed rebuffed General Skundar Akbar's stable invite, stomping a gift Rolex from Landel in a defiant brawl that flipped him babyface. Teaming with Duggan against Akbar's horde, Reed redeemed his heel sins, until Kamala the Ugandan giant steamrolled him in a series of squash matches that rode him out. A quick AWA stint as Jimmy Garvin's enforcer followed, but Mid-South called Reed back in. 1985, he reclaimed the North American title from Dick Murdoch and dueled Flair to a 60-minute draw for the NWA World Strap, a clinic that reaffirmed his elite status. His swan song? A vicious loss to Dick Slater in early 1986. Slater's dirty tricks sealing Reed's Mid-South exit amid whispers of attitude clashes with Watts, who reportedly tired of Reed's backstage gripes. Reed resurfaced in NWA Central States, tagging with Rufus R. Jones before turning on the veteran for Slick's sleazy guidance. Their split sparked fireworks, but the real violence brewed with Bruiser Brody, a 300-pound cyclone of savagery. Their chain matches were bloodbaths, chairs dented and egos bruised, ending in Reed's loser leaves town defeat. Slick in tow, Reed hit WWF in 1986 as The Natural, hair bleached blonde, trunk sparkling, a nod to Sweet Daddy Siki's Flash. Managed by Slick's silver tongue, Reed debuted strong, pinning Coco B. We're at WrestleMania 3 in front of 93,173, a Pontiac Silverdome spectacle that hinted at stardom. He menaced Tito Santana with power bombs and trash talk, then eyed Ricky the Dragon Steamboat's Intercontinental Championship. House show clashes and TV brawls positioned Reed as a contender, but whispers of unreliability, missed dates, locker room snubs killed the push. Slick later admitted Reed's flakiness. He had the tools, but the attitude? Nah. Instead, WWF pivoted to a hyped feud with superstar Billy Graham, the ex-champ returning post-hip surgery. Graham's body couldn't hack it, so Reed and one-man gang injured him in a vicious attack, writing him out for good. Don Morocco avenged Graham at Survivor Series 87, with Reed on Andre the Giant's heel squad, only to eat a Hulk Hogan leg drop as the first elimination. The curse struck again at the inaugural Royal Rumble 88. Reed entered third, dumped out first by a jobber. WrestleMania IV's WWF title tournament saw him dominate Macho Man Randy Savage early, but arrogance undid him. Taunting Miss Elizabeth atop the ropes, he ate a slam and elbow for the pin. Post-Mania, Reed and WWF parted amid the scrapped IC plans. His natural gimmick fizzled as a punchline. The blonde dye job a symbol of misguided vanity. Reed rebooted in Jim Crockett Promotions as Hacksaw, feuding anew with JYD under J.J. Dillon's wing before Slick sold him to Hiro Matsuda's Yamazaki Corporation. Momentum stalled. A loss to Sting at Chi-Town Rumble '89 buried him mid-card. Then came Doom, masked with Ron Simmons, managed by woman Nancy Benoit. They debuted at Halloween Havoc '89, doinking the Steiner brothers with a loaded headbutt. But the Hoods couldn't hide their identities. Fans clocked the massive duo, and a Starrcade '89 round-robin flop, 0 wins, soured woman, who ditched them. At Clash of the Champions X, a Steiner's loss forced the unmasking, a blessing in disguise. Freed, Doom exploded, power-bombing foes. They avenged the Steiners at Capital Combat 90 to snag the WCW tag titles. They demolished the Four Horsemen, Enforcers, and Freebirds, their no-sell dominance a highlight of WCW's tag renaissance. Cracks formed at Clash 14. A non-title loss to Sting and Lex Luger exposed tensions. At Wrestle War 91, a Freebirds misfire boiled over. Reed no-sold a Simmons tag, sparking a post-match beatdown. With Teddy Long barking orders, Reed feuded Simmons in a Super Brawl cage war, Simmons prevailing in a bloody nod to their chemistry. Reed exited WCW, returning briefly in '92 to tag with Barbarian and Cactus Jack, upsetting Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham at Clash XX. But by year's end, he was out. The Indies beckoned. USWA saw him reclaim JYD Heat and snag the unified world heavyweight title for a week before Todd Champion dethroned him. GWF's North American strap fell to Chris Adams swiftly. Rodeo calls from Kansas City pulled him away. But wrestling lured back. He balanced bull riding with Harley Race's WLW, capturing the heavyweight title in 2001 for a near-year reign before dropping it in '02, retirement whispered, but Reed roared back in 2005, winning Mid-States heavyweight gold and touring Legends of Wrestling in '06. A 2007 WWE SmackDown cameo with Theodore Long nodded to his slick days. His final hurrah? May 18, 2013, teaming with Bob Orton Jr. in a SICW loss to Flash Flanagan and Ron Powers in East Carondelet, Illinois, a quiet curtain call for a career spanning NWA, WWF, WCW, and beyond that Reed's later years darkened. In January 2021, 2 massive heart attacks struck, complications felling him on February 5 at 66. A month prior, COVID-19 ravaged him, layering tragedy on a body battered by decades of bumps. Whispers of CTE from a 2016 WWE lawsuit lingered, but his death closed a chapter of what-ifs. Reed's talent, that 5-star Flair classic, Doom's dominance, was undeniable, paving paths for black stars like the New Day. Yet his attitude? A wrecking ball. What's booted him for insubordination? WWF scrapped his IC run over no-shows. Fans soured on his fan snubs. Slick's candor. He was his own worst enemy. Echoes. Reed could have been Hogan's rival, not a footnote. Instead, ego eclipsed excellence, turning promise to pathos. His legacy? A reminder. In wrestling's brutal ballet, the real heel is often the mirror.